Need helicopter songs.
Perfect. Were those bombs? What was that?
Yeah, it's like a Vietnam dropping napalm kind of thing. I was like channeling like Apocalypse Now.
Oh, perfect.
That's the best war movie ever.
Welcome to Emotionships, where we talk about the real reason everything happens for a reason. I'm your host, Charlie Carroll, along with my copious co-host, Mallory Redmond. Mal, welcome to the program.
Are we for real?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know we were starting.
We're rolling.
Oh, I thought you
Hang
were
on, my mic doesn't work.
Well, and ladies and gentlemen,
surprise!
we have a guest on the program today.
Oh my.
The wonderful Jeff Goins is sitting in on our session today, just in town for business. Jeff, welcome to the program. Mal?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you.
Good to be here.
It's good to have both of you on the program this morning. Here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we are.
For those of you that are just tuning in to Emotionships, the podcast, Emotionships is where we talk about, it's the real reason everything happens for a reason. But what we mean by that is there is an emotional connection to every relationship we have in our life. And so when we talking about, I don't know what I just said there.
What are we talking about?
What are we talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Charlie? Why isn't this podcast called What You Talking About, Charlie?
Is it too late to switch the name?
We can always switch the name.
Yeah.
But an emotionship is our emotional relationship to all of our relationships in life. And so, as we have said, we have an emotional relationship to pizza. We have an emotional relationship to the idea of marriage and anything else that we could ever mention. And often, the reason why we're talking about this is because it's that energy that is driving our life and driving our relationships, not the things that we have our hands on or that we are interacting with on a daily basis. So the idea is when you get a hold of or can identify the energy behind what is happening, you can actually get a hold of your life. How'd I do, guys?
I like that.
That was
You
clear.
should talk more about that.
Mm-hmm. Maybe start a podcast about it.
Oh, that's good.
Jeff, give us an update. You're starting.
He's ignoring us.
You're starting a new podcast.
Oh yeah.
Talk about it. Tell us what's going on in your life.
What is going on in my life? Well, we're starting a new podcast, produced by the illustrious Kelton Reed, who is
Good guy, a lot of talent.
yeah, he's wrangling this show, this arrangement here. Yeah, what is going on? I think a year ago we were here-ish. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Is that right?
But a year-ish ago we were here.
Ish.
Okay.
And yeah, I think I'm coming out of the tunnel of making some changes in my life, getting a divorce, deciding if I wanted to keep doing what I was doing vocationally, getting through a pandemic. And I really wanted to rush all of that. Like I wanted to just I remember going to see a therapist last year. I don't know if I told you the story, and I met with her, and it was on Zoom. It was over a year ago. I just moved out, and all these decisions that I had made kind of caught up with me, and my life kind of came crashing down. And I was like, oh, you ever make a decision, and then you feel the consequence.
Sure.
It's like, no, it's like when you take your kids to get vaccinated. I mean, depending on if you're Republican or Democrat.
Of course.
You take your kids to the doctor and they get a shot, and there's that jolt, right? Like the stick, and I don't know, there's gonna be some pressure, and the initial stick doesn't hurt. Like you watch a baby, right? Like the baby goes, the baby's fine, stick, baby's fine. And then color floods the baby's face, or it turns white or something, and then the baby just starts screaming, right? I remember last time, one of our kids got a shot. It was like a baby, and it's so heartbreaking, right? You're like, see, you're fine, it's fine, and then it's not fine, and that poor kid. And it was like that. It was like, oh, I'm fine. And I was meeting with a therapist, and I realized I had to work through some trauma, and that it was had nothing to do with my marriage that had just ended, and had very little to do with what was going on in my life at the time, and went right back to childhood, which I thought was strange. I thought, I'm gonna process this stuff that I'm going through now, and
Sure.
whatever last thing you didn't process, you can go back there, wherever you left off. And I remember I met with her, and we did a number of intake sessions. We were doing EMDR and what's called brain spotting, where you follow this point, they hold a pen or something up, and you follow it, and then track it, and then you stop at a point where, depending on you probably know this or you're interested in it, depending on where you look, you feel different things. Mm-hmm. So as an experiment, you can kind of look around and notice in your body if different feelings come up. If you look up, over, down, you can actually feel sensations in your body if you're in tune and in touch with that. I wasn't, I thought it was stupid, and I was like, what is this? What is this witchcraft? Just tell me what to do.
Hippie stuff.
It's hippie stuff. It's an emerging psychological field. But I remember doing a session or two with her, and I wanted to get on with it. I wanted to get on with my healing. Yeah. And I said, we met once or twice, and the first couple of sessions are just Q&A, questionnaires type stuff. And I said, can we do 3 hours next time? Can we just nail this? Can we just
get through it?
Can we finish it?
Yeah.
She's like, I want you to notice that you're trying to rush this. And one of the things I've learned about the nervous system, and I'm hesitant to talk about any of this because I don't feel very qualified to talk about it other than I've experienced it, is you can't rush healing. If your nervous system is this sort of electrical system in your body that's really intended to keep you safe and alert you when there's danger, whether or not you're actually unsafe doesn't matter. You can't just you can't trick your nervous system into just going, nope, you're fine. You have to retrain it to go, no, it's fine. Like a kid who's traumatized, it takes time. And healing takes time, I guess, is the point of that story. And I wanted to rush it, I want to rush everything, because she said, I want you to notice that you're trying to rush this process. And I said, oh, yeah, I know. I that's how I do everything. Let's move through the uncomfortable parts to get to the better parts.
Sure.
And she goes, well, this isn't going to work like that. And so, a year and change later, still healing, still growing, still seeing that therapist. And I'm coming out of what's often called the tunnel, where you go through a major transition, often in the middle of your life. There's that beginning of Dante's Divine Comedy, which I'm going to butcher, but it's something to the effect of, in the middle of his life, and this is true. Dante wrote it in the middle of his life when he was facing all kinds of political stuff, where there was all this stuff happening in Florence, and a lot of the artists and people that had essentially started the Renaissance had to flee. And he goes, in the middle of my life, I found myself in a dark wood, and that's how the Divine Comedy, the Inferno, his journey through heaven, hell, all of it, meeting an angel, all of that. That's how it starts, and I think that's how any story of transformation starts, is in the middle of a dark wood where you can't. It goes, I found myself in the middle of a dark wood where the true way was lost, and I felt that way. And so what's going on in my life? I'm emerging out of the dark wood, out of the tunnel. And some of the things that I've always done, I'm still doing. Some of the things that I did for a long time, I'm not doing anymore. but it all feels so fresh and beautiful. Sunsetting my old podcast, starting a new one called Hey Creator.
Hold on. You can't move too fast.
Whoa,
through this.
Whoa,
Yep. Stop.
whoa.
Pause.
I think, listening to you last time that you were on the podcast and everything that you were taking on, I think it's safe to say there are probably some people that felt like they were wishing you well by wishing you would fail.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think anytime you break ties with mainstream, even if that is mainstream Christianity, there are people that think an act of love is to wish that you come back, like the prodigal, and so it's a very, I mean, when you just finished all that you said by saying life is fresh and beautiful, I mean, those are very powerful words.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't feel like
You're still alive, and
Yeah.
you feel like life is fresh and beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I don't really think of my life as leaving things. Typically, I think of graduating things.
Right.
Moving on from one thing to the next, because life itself is ephemeral. Life is loss. And I think we don't fully appreciate that.
Sure.
Parenting is a beautiful picture of that. You're constantly watching your kids change, which is another way of saying you're watching them cease to be who they were. There's a death that's happening, and it's being replaced with something that is, in many cases more beautiful and wonderful. But we're all parents, and we know what it was like to have children, as infants or toddlers or even preteens. And what you talking about, Charlie? We're talking about preteens today. I don't know. And I think there's a necessary grief to any kind of growth in life. And as I've made more peace with that, life has become more beautiful. When you learn to enjoy life instead of trying to hold on to pieces of it, it's so wonderful. Brushing your teeth, going for a walk, eating a meal, going to sleep, having a headache, I mean, all of these things have a certain wonder to them.
Yeah.
They're full of wonder in the sense that you go, I woke up today and had some pain in some of my joints. And I was like, interesting sensations, like I think we take for granted that, the opposite of pain isn't pleasure. I think the opposite of pain is numbness, right? And if you're completely numb, you're not alive, you're dead.
Sure.
I'd rather have a little bit of pain, maybe not a lot of pain. I'd rather have some pain. I'd rather have some sensation than nothing. I mean, nothing means I'm not here. And so when I say, everything is fresh and beautiful, it's just like, you ever have like a long sleep, like a long, amazing, deep, maybe even hard dream, and you wake up and everything's like, you're like, is that real? Did that happen? Maybe you had a dream that somebody died and you want to call them, or whatever. And it's like you wake up and you go, wait, is this a dream or was that the dream?
Sure.
I remember not too long ago kind of waking up and like reorienting myself in my room going, what, who am I? What's happening? I had to like remind myself of my story. Sometimes like when you're traveling, you wake up, you go, where am I? Mm-hmm. What is this story that I'm living? And so, I feel like I woke up into my life and which is just kind of, I'm reorienting myself. It reminds me of when I studied abroad in college. I went to Spain for 4.5 months, and I came back for Christmas, back to Illinois where I grew up. And I remember coming home. My mom picked me up from the airport, and I came home like that evening, picked me up in Chicago, and then we drove like an hour back home. And I remember like going into the bathroom. I grew up in a 900 square foot little square box in Waterman, Illinois, and little house. There was eventually 4 kids, 2 parents. And I mean, eventually there's a 19-year spread between me and all my siblings. And I came home and I was like just touching things, like, I don't know, like picking up some like precious moments, porcelain, whatever that my mom had, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's precious moments, but we'll pretend it was.
This commercial is brought to you by
Precious moments. What you talking about? Talking about precious moments. And I just was touching things that were familiar, but I was like, huh. And life feels that way to me, coming back into a familiar scene and just seeing everything anew.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
That jogged a memory of mine. The first time that I went back to my house, my parents' house, after going away to college, I will never forget. I walked into the garage and it was, I think what you're describing was like the weirdest feeling of like, this is so familiar and so foreign to me all at the same time. Like I've been in this garage countless times in my life and I'm coming back and it's like fresh in a way that I can't really put words to. But I never felt that again, like coming back from college. I never felt that again. It was that first time was like, whoa,
I know.
Where have I been? And so I'm wondering, I don't know. I mean, it's been maybe a year, you said a little bit over a year that you've kind of been experiencing life anew. Is it like, how do you keep, are you actively like keeping it fresh or is that just like the experience that you're having? Does that make sense?
Welcome to Emotionships, where we keep it fresh. I don't know. Am I working at keeping it fresh? I remember when you said that, I thought about, I think maybe this was something they told us in college, like freshman orientation, which is like there will come a point where going home will feel like leaving home, right? And home becomes college, which makes sense. You're spending 9, 10 months a year there. And I felt that. I started to feel homesick for college, right? And I've always maybe felt that way. We were talking Enneagram the other day, you and I, Mallory. And one of my high numbers on the test is a 4, which is this kind of like deep sense of longing. There's more. And in order for you to believe there's something more, you also have to believe there's something missing. And so when I encountered the Christian story, it was like strangers in a foreign land. What does C.S. Lewis say? If we find that our desires are not met in this world, something to that effect, then we must reason that we were made for another world. And then you read something like Narnia, and there's something about fantasy where we go, yes, this is like there's more. There's got to be more. I felt that my whole life, and so that's why I like travel. That's why I was going to be a missionary for a while. Like I wanted to go find the next thing, and I think there's something really powerful about change of scenery, about travel. Is it does keep it fresh, and this is not a cognitive thing. It's an awareness thing. It's like a bodily thing. So. I think creating enough change on a regular basis that doesn't feel like chaos, because that's too much to notice, and not getting so stuck in a routine that I don't notice anything. If that makes sense? Like if the way that you keep life fresh, and I'm thinking through this while I talk about it, is to tune into things that you might otherwise miss. One of the ways that we do that is by stepping away from familiar things and coming back to them. And so having some sort of practice that disrupts routines, because routine can become a rut, but it can also be a groove, and there's a fine line between a rut and a groove. A rut is something you're stuck in. A groove, if you think about like a record, is how you make music, right?
Sure.
There's certain grooves and it's groovy, baby. and Yeah, I'm just playing off these
love
glasses
it.
and
I
your
love
shirt.
it.
You know, you
love
give me
it.
these '70s vibes,
Yeah,
these
that's
chairs.
good. That's the point.
Yeah. Um. So, I think I used to think that if I got the perfect routine, I mean, this is like in the life hacking world of the internet, like get the perfect morning routine and do an ice bath and do a this and do a that. And I was driving around town the other day, and I had my kids and I had some work stuff, and it was like I had things that I had to do. And I drove past this coffee shop where I used to drop my son off at school, and I would go work out at this gym, and then I would go get coffee, and I would like read and write and start my day, and then I would go like get lunch at Chipotle, and then I would go to my office and I would like do some more work, and then I would come home and I'd go pick my kid up from school, and then I'd come home and I would do this, and I had these like blocks of time. It was very regimented. And I could never get a handle on it. Like I could never like grab life and like contain it. Like life was always kind of breaking out of these boxes, It was like I was late or stressed or never fully present. And I just kept telling myself, like I kept trying to like hack the schedule, and I would like send a note to my assistant, we got to do this, and I would always kind of like want to radically change everything. So from chaos to chaos. And now it was really interesting because I was just like paying attention to my life now, and I was like, oh, like you like don't have any appointments before noon, right? Like you get up and like go for a walk for 2 hours now, like and ease into your day. And you still get kind of the same amount of things done, sometimes more, sometimes less, but there's a lot more presence. I thought that life was something to be managed instead of something to be experienced. And it's really hard to manage life, right? It's like trying to contain the river. You get a cup and you go, oh, this beautiful river. I'm going to show it to my friend. You get a cup and you go, here's the river. Oh, it's just water, dude.
Yeah.
Like as soon as the movement stops, as soon as you try to contain it, it's not it anymore. So I don't know how to answer that question except to say like, I want to behold life without trying to hold it, without trying to contain it. Because you can behold something with your attention, your focus, and that's beautiful. It's full of beauty. And when you try to contain it too much, trap it, it all just kind of falls apart, right? I love movies. As a writer, I'm embarrassed that I watch more movies than read books. And there's this great Scorsese film with DiCaprio called Shutter Island. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Oh, it's amazing. It's such a.
You both just looked at me like
It's such
That surprises me that you haven't seen it.
It's a mind trippy kind of book, and I love any movie. I love any movie that things are not what they seem. You're like, oh whoa, it was all a dream. Whoa. And it's a movie about DiCaprio, who's a detective, and he goes to this insane asylum to like investigate why these people are disappearing, I think is the premise. And his backstory is that his wife is dead. And you find this out over the course of the film, like what happened and why, all that. But there's a scene where he is dancing with her in the kitchen. It's a memory. And he's like trying to hold on to her. And he like holds on to her. And she like turns to ash, while he's holding on to her. And Inception, same kind of movie, DiCaprio as well, where he can only dream of his dead wife, and he says, "In my dreams, we're still together." And both of those movies are a really beautiful picture of what happens when you try to contain something that's gone.
Yeah,
you can remember it, you can remember it, you can re-put it together. But it's gone, It's something, and when something else leaves, something else comes, right? It's like the river. It's not dried up. It's like there's more water coming, and that's the beauty of life. And it's also hard, especially I think in American society and Western culture, we're taught to grab, attain, achieve, like get it.
Yeah.
Go get it. Grab life by the horns, you know? Which is a fascinating analogy that people don't really think about. You're going to grab life by the horns. And then what? This is a bull that you're holding. Are you riding the bull? Is it going to charge you?
Yeah.
Whatever happens after you grab the life by the horns, you know, like it's going to be a rough ride. It's not going to be you're not like, oh, got a bull now. I'm going to put it in my pocket, you know, go to the market. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's coming out of my mouth.
Well, so for the person listening, right, that knows that you have become a creative entrepreneur, we're going to get into your new podcast that talks about Hey Creator and just basically coming alongside people that are wanting to make the transition into basically working for themselves and utilizing their passion or whatever they're interested in to finance their life. I want to just rewind here for a second because often I have found in being someone that is an entrepreneur and doing these things that people are like, whoa, you lost me. I hear now that you get to wake up and do a 2-hour walk if you want to and kind of manage the flow of your life. How do I go from where I'm at now to where you are? And I just want to go back to a portion of what we were talking about earlier with this idea of the river and change. And when one thing goes, another thing comes in, and sometimes another thing doesn't come in because we've never taken the leap to allow something else to go. You said that when you were meeting with your therapist, one of the discoveries was it wasn't the immediate that you needed to work through, which you had acted on an impulse over a period of time to get divorced, to leave from a lifestyle or from a routine standpoint, a lot that you were familiar with and what you had always known. Do you think that you would have had the opportunity to process the childhood trauma, which seems to have started you on this journey toward fresh and beautiful, if you would not have made the initial decision to get divorced or to make a pretty significant change in your daily routine?
I don't know. I have no way of knowing that.
Is it the change in the, and I don't, obviously it's not just about the one decision because you made more decisions than just getting divorced, but is it following the breadcrumb or the initial thing that was in front of you to change directions that activated the childhood trauma, would you say? What activated it and why weren't you addressing it prior to?
Yeah. So you use the word impulse. I wouldn't say it was an impulse. I don't actually make many decisions impulsively. What I do is I have a feeling, you could call it an impulse, like I want to do this thing that comes up in me, and I suppress it. Because what I now know about myself is I don't trust my own intuition, or I haven't typically trusted my own intuition, and so I'll have a thing that I want to do, and then I will suffer over whether or not I'm going to do it. And certainly the decision to leave the marriage was that a thing that I, should I do this? Can I do this? I can't do this. And it was 2 to 3 years of processing. And I was bumping into lots of stuff in my life. So the first thing that you said was like, how do you, wake up and go for a 2 hour? I want to do that. I want to wake up and go for a 2 hour walk. Well, it was a decision that I made at a time when I wasn't making a lot of money or experiencing a lot of success, when I was most quote unquote successful, when I had the most amount of money in my bank and the highest net worth. I was stressed and you could see it on my body. I was overweight and didn't feel good, and I was tired, and my body was filled with stress, with fear. I remember going to a therapist. I'd been seeing a counselor for years, and we were like identifying the feelings on the feelings wheel, if you're familiar with that. And I go, I feel stressed. What is that? He goes, stress is fear. And I never heard that before. I was like, oh, stress is fear. Stress is fear. Oh my God, I'm afraid. And I was going through life with a lot of fear. I had an experience, which I think I told you about last time, and I'll recap it here. But I had an experience years ago where nothing I had done felt like success, and I went and hung out with my friend Ian Cron, who's a priest and a psychotherapist. And if you have a friend who's a priest and a psychotherapist,
you hang out with them.
you need to understand that there are no secrets. Even when you want to keep them, they see through your soul, you know? And we were just hanging out on his porch, drinking whiskey, talking. And I said, nothing I've ever done has felt like success. And I was aware that was like a screwed up thing to say. Because I knew that at that point, like, I had achieved something that a lot of people wanted to achieve. I had made $1 million. I had written multiple best-selling books. I had a big house. I worked for myself. Like, I was good.
Yeah.
And all I saw when I looked at the things that I had accomplished were like, yeah, I know I did that, but it wasn't this. It was tinged with failure. And I said, isn't that weird? He goes, that's something. And I said, maybe what I need to do is stop doing all this internet stuff and just write books and I'll be happy. He goes, I don't think that's it. Like, I don't think a new business model is the solution to your problem. And he was the one who posited to me the idea that this might be trauma. And so I started going down that rabbit trail a little bit, not really understanding how to process things that happened in the past, just going, oh, trauma, what is that? I'll read some books. I'll think about that. I'll talk about it, not understanding that trauma is emotions essentially trapped in the body that have to get released because you didn't feel safe to feel those emotions at whatever age you were. And it wasn't like something that had happened to me. When we hear the word trauma, I know you guys talk about it, but people misunderstand, like, well, I don't have any trauma. It's like, trauma is life, like, life is traumatic in the sense that things happen at you that you don't always have the tools to process, and you have to work through them later. That's all that is. Trauma is just, and I'm not a specialist or anything, but as I understand it, all trauma is something happens and you do not feel safe to feel the thing, whatever it is. So, to answer your question, I was working on it. And the decision to end our marriage was a long one for me. It seemed sudden to others, and that's fine. But for me, it felt like a long, arduous process. And it was probably the first major decision that I had made in a long time where I was going to trust myself. I was going to trust that I knew what was best for me. And I was going to accept the consequences. It was a very adult decision to make. And in spite of being an adult, and in spite of being a father and a husband and an entrepreneur and a boss, I was still very much acting like a child. And so that decision was...
You were acting... How were you acting like a child?
In my life, I was acting like a child. I was trying to do the right thing. I was scared of getting in trouble. I was hiding things that I was... scared to let other people see that were not, I'm not talking about like cocaine or anything, but like, it was just like, I had this feeling all the time, like, I'm going to get in trouble. I can't be myself in my marriage. I can't be myself around my friends. I was always afraid that people were judging me. I was scared. I was going through life like a scared kid because that's what my childhood was I was always scared that something was going to happen and I didn't know what. Yeah. And so, hypervigilance, just always kind of watching, right? And sometimes growing up, things would happen, and the cops would show up, because my parents were fighting. And the neighbors had called the police, or it was just a chaotic environment. And I was going through life that way, And even that not enough, there's not enough, there's got to be more was that. And in college, when I got really involved in evangelicalism, it was like, here is a system that gives me sort of milestones, checkpoints where I can go, did this, got baptized, spoke in tongues, got the Holy Spirit, charismatic stuff, went on a mission trip, fasted for this much time. There were things that I could do, right? Like to your question, Mallory, what do you do? And it's like, well, I'm really good at doing. I'm actually trying to like disabuse myself of all the doing. Because you can do so much without ever being present to anything. And I respect the fact that people can do lots of those practices and it can bring them into an awareness of God and connection with everything. But for me, there was just, I was a kid in the sense that I was just like waiting for somebody to come and go, you're okay, everything's fine. And I realized that I had to be that person. I had to be the one who accepted me before anyone else, before I would let anybody else accept me, love me. I had to do it for myself. So I had, millions of people who were reading my work and connecting with my work in various ways. And I didn't feel any of it. It felt dead to me. And so the decision to not just end my marriage, but really kind of create the life that I wanted to create for myself, which felt like a dream, felt like a fantasy. And I made the hard decision with a lot of consequences, a lot of hardship, a lot of pain for a lot of people, including myself and others, because it felt like the right thing to me. And I didn't know it was the right thing, but I wanted to try. I wanted to try something for the first time in my life where I go, I don't know, but I want to see what's on the other side of this wanting, this curiosity about a life that I could create for myself. And my ex-wife and I had conversations about whether or not we could do that together. And she thought we could, and I didn't think we could. I mean, so it was a hard thing. But that decision put me back in the driver's seat. And the truth is, my life, I was in the back seat, like, I met Charlie, and I'm like pushing Charlie into the driver's seat of my life. Like, where do you want to go, Charlie? And he's like, what are you talking about? It's your car, And I'm like, no, just drive, And then I'd be like climbing up in the front seat and like messing with things. Like that's how my life felt very chaotic, where I was putting other people in the driver's seat. They told me what was right. They told me what was wrong. They told me what I should do. I remember asking a mentor early on in my entrepreneurial journey, what's the next book that I should write? I had just written like 3 books, and I asked this guy that I looked up to, I think it was Chris Guillebeau, and I said, hey, Chris, what's the next book that I should write? It felt like a very like winsome thing, like a story that like a personal development guru would tell in his book. I asked so-and-so what I should do next, and they said this, and I went and did it, and I made a bunch of money or whatever. And I sent this email to Chris Guillebeau. I said, hey, what's the next book that I should write? And he goes, I have no idea, ! And I got that email back, and I was like, well, of course not. That's a weird question to ask. Why did I ask? But that was how I lived my life. What do you think I should do? What do you think I should be? And energetically, I was doing that. And I remember a friend, not that close of a friend that I connected with last year. I remember saying something to her like, I'm tired of rejecting myself. She goes, I'm so glad you said that. As long as I've known you, you've been rejecting yourself. You've even been rejecting the person you were to become the person that you think you need to be. And so this recent transition, it's, change is something that I've done my whole life, gone from one thing to the next, quitting my, leaving home, going to college, going to Spain, coming back, moving away, traveling with a band. I've done a lot of things. And so this most recent transition into a new life wasn't completely new to me. It's a thing that I've done before. I like change. But what feels beautiful about it is I'm not going, oh, that was the old me. Forget about that. This is the new me. It's like another movie reference, Bourne Identity, the original trilogy, like Star Wars. Those are the only good movies. At the end of every Bourne movie, they have this like spy training program that is incredibly illegal, and they have to go, oh, no, that's the Jason Bourne situation is taken care of. That's shut down. We're shutting this program down. And now I want to tell you about a new program called Blackbriar, and it's the same thing with a new name. And I was doing that with my life where I was like, oh, no, this like no, I'm not doing that dysfunctional thing anymore. I got this new thing. I got a new job. I got a new life, a new whatever. And I don't think of my life that way anymore. At least, I mean, maybe that's another way of, it's a sneaky way of doing that. I don't think that way anymore. So yeah, was it a domino in the progression of dominoes that led to facing some stuff that I wasn't facing? For sure. And if I hadn't made that decision, would I be here now? No, I'd be somewhere else, because that's how life works. You make one different decision today and it leads to a completely different outcome. And one of the things that this experience has taught me is every decision matters. Every moment matters. There are no big decisions. There are no big decisions. There are just a bunch of little small decisions that create momentum in one direction or another. And so when people think about, I'm going to change my life, no, you're not. You're going to make some small decision today that will put you on one path or another. And there are certainly moments of insight or awareness or perspective where you go, oh, I'm here now. Or, and I can look back and see all of the decisions that got me here, or I'm going to take the first step in this direction. I'm scared to death. But the truth is, almost any decision is reversible because it's a step. It's like, going this way versus going that way. I love the Robert Frost poem. Speaking of, being in the middle of a dark wood, where he talks about, I stood in a yellow wood and I saw these two paths and I took the one less traveled, and and I'm grateful for it. I'm butchering the poem. And what's beautiful about that poem, if you read it over and over and over again, is Robert Frost was one of my grandfather's favorite poets. And I recently read it again, and I realized that it's not about finding the right path. It's not even about taking the less traveled path, because when he looks at the paths, they both seem good. The point is that he made a decision. And I think you guys have talked about Glennon Doyle before. One of the great insights from her book that I really enjoyed is she is debating whether or not she's going to make this incredibly big change to change her life or not, leaving her husband for a woman. Oh my gosh. That's going to set into motion some consequences, right? And she's talking to the school therapist, this counselor at her school, about her kids. What are my kids going to do? Oh, I don't want to make the wrong decision. And the counselor says to her, it's not the wrong decision that screws up a kid. It's indecision.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing of our lives. It's not the wrong decision that messes up your life. It's indecision.
Yeah.
And obviously there are some bad choices. You guys have worked with people in the inner city. You've worked with people who are living in poverty, who are economically depressed. I've been in that world too. And everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating to me, it was never one decision. It was a progression of decisions that got them there.
I'm going to set this up. If you would read this piece for us, I'll set the piece up,
Sure.
but I need you to read it for us. Would you give that to him?
Oh, how
please?
lovely. Okay.
Yes. So several months ago, I am sitting in Jeff's apartment, and we're talking about this very thing and just how scary change is and hard decisions. And obviously a lot of what you were saying to me on that day was coming out of these decisions that you had made. And then I am driving back to Dayton from Nashville when you send me this piece that you're about to read, and I thought to myself, like, this is so beautiful. Who did you get it from? Only to discover you sat down and wrote this after we finished the conversation.
I don't remember that. I mean, I remember this, but I don't remember writing it and sending it to you. Yeah. So several years ago, I got really fascinated with butterflies, which is a manly thing to say. And I just got fascinated with the whole process of transformation and how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. And the science of it is interesting and kind of disgusting, where a caterpillar crawls into a chrysalis and they don't just grow wings. If you look at a caterpillar versus a butterfly, they're a completely different organism. And what happens when you go into a a cocoon or a chrysalis is it's kind of similar to what you're saying, which is like, did this thing lead to this? There was a point for me where this transformation that I've experienced felt like a thing that was just happening in me. It was just happening in me. And there's this instinctive thing that happens for a caterpillar where they crawl up on a branch, start eating a lot, they gorge themselves, and they just instinctively do it. And then they create a little home, a little safe container for themselves to experience the total transformation. And if you were to go into if you're like to cut a chrysalis while it's in the middle of this transformational process, it would die. It would cease to be. It would kind of ooze out. And what happens is the caterpillar creates just naturally, biologically. It's not trying to change. It is changing. This is, I think, the crux of what I'm trying to say is you don't try to change. You notice that you are always changing. And that life wants to move through you. And you can partner with it or resist it. And the change is still going to happen, but that's the difference between transformation and
devastation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the piece. The caterpillar, for all we know, may enter the chrysalis in an attempt to become a better caterpillar. He may be addicted to self-help programs and earnestly desire to be a better version of his wormy self. Little does he know that when he weaves a cocoon around his body, that he is in fact forming his own coffin. He is going to his death. When a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, does he remember his caterpillarness? We don't know. What we do know is that whatever he was could not survive what he had to become. This is the work of transformation, and it is hard, it is painful, it is necessary. We all feel, on occasion, I think, that the role we've been living is not who we really are, that our identity is something larger than the skin in which we find ourselves, which is when we are called to our own cocoons, the places where what we were must die so that who we can be may live. This is not easy. It may not feel good, but it is true. If you were to pierce the skin of a chrysalis in the midst of its rebirth, what would exit that silky womb would be a mess of liquid, the chaotic goo of change that is always swirling in us during times of transition. And so what it takes to become our true selves is stillness, to let the process happen to and through us. It is this ability to sit with the discomfort of change that truly transforms us. All growth is a death of some sort, and the brave souls who weather these storms are those who learn to fly. That's pretty good.
That's really, really good.
Yeah.
What?
No, I remember getting that from you and just thinking, gosh. I mean, learning to sit with it. So hard.
Yeah, that is my experience of life, going from making things happen to letting them happen. And I was taught and told that you can't just let things happen, you got to make things happen. And the whole concept of flow is partnering with life, letting things happen and going along with them in a certain way. And you don't lose your agency when you stop trying to control things. You actually understand what it is and what it's not.
Sure.
That there is a way that things are. The Chinese call it the Tao. It is the way. It is how things go. And you watch a river and you see how, like, the water knows the path it needs to go over the rocks this way, and it's always changing and moving, and it's not thinking about it, right? It's not the caterpillar is not thinking about becoming a butterfly, for all I know.
Yeah.
It just is. It is doing that. And I have found there's a way to do business that way.
Sure.
There is a way to parent that way. There is a way to work on your health that way. And so much of my life was just like, I got to make this thing happen. I thought that I had to hurt to change. And I don't think that's true anymore, at least in the way that I thought of it.
I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, and he was just expressing his desire to find that forever relationship. And I was telling him that, my experience with like the law of attraction and the quantum realm is that you have to let things find you. And we even see this in the Christian narrative of God finding us, and that blessing tracks us down. And I think one of the reasons why so many would say they don't relate to that idea of their life being fresh and beautiful is because we have been captured by the consumer mentality that does say you have to make it happen, versus vibing at the highest frequency that you can vibe at, enjoying your life, enjoying whatever you're doing. And then I have found that, and I could give very specific examples of this, like the most lucrative business contract I've ever had found me. And I think that's what it is. I think in the way Jesus would say it, in the kingdom, or in the invisible realm where all of this energy is, you want things to find you. And so the best way that you can position yourself for things to find you is like to be authentically yourself and authentically pursuing the things that you're interested in and what make you come alive. Like we say that like gratefulness or gratitude is in that receiver type position, that you put yourself in a position energetically to receive things, like when you're already grateful and expressing gratitude over the life that you have. But true to what you're saying, this is a guy that I was talking to that has so much going for him as far as being in touch with his feminine energy, which we can talk about in a second. Understanding relationships, like successful athlete, like leading groups of people, and he still feels like he has to go out there and hunt. And I think the thing that it's so hard for us to understand in life is sometimes it takes decades for that thing that is so great and cannot be explained with words to find you, and just because it hasn't found you yet doesn't mean it won't. And often if we are going to compromise being found, it's because we settled for other things instead of waiting for that thing that felt like, it was inexplainable or too good to be true.
I believe that you always attract what you are. And so your life is a mirror. And so if you see a certain kind of group of people in your life and you go, I don't like this, it's like, of course you do. You are this. Maybe and whatever you don't like about this is something that you don't like in you. And I have noticed that people come into my life when I'm ready for them and when they're ready for me.
Sure.
And people leave my life, even when I try to hold on to them. I'm thinking of like friendships, family relationships. I love being connected to people. I don't like letting go of relationships. All I ever wanted to be was a good friend, and to have good friends. That's like Matthew McConaughey says in his book Green Lights. All I ever wanted to be was a dad. That's beautiful. I didn't always want to be a dad. I wasn't 12 years old going, I want to be a dad. I always wanted to be a good friend, and I want to be a good friend to and with my kids. Speaking of biblical stories, I love the story of Jacob wrestling with God, wrestling the angel, however you want to think of that. Because the backstory is really interesting. You have this man who is successful. He's a liar. He's a cheat. He's cheated his brother out of the family fortune, out of his inheritance. And he thinks, and this is actually Frederick Buechner's take on the story. If you read any of Buechner's books, he has a book of his sermons. He has a sermon about this, which is brilliant. You have this old story of like wrestles with the angel, gets a blessing. There you go. That's kind of what I remember the story. And he breaks it down. He goes, no. Here's a guy who's going through life, very alpha, very masculine, very like, I'm gonna go get this. I'm gonna get the tribe. I'm gonna build the kingdom. He's a very successful shepherd at this point. You know, shepherds were lords over land, right? They were big deals. They were rich. This was a rich family.
Yeah.
And he wrestles an angel, right? He says, I can do this. I can get my father to give me what I want. I can steal what I want from my brother. I can get the wife that I want. I mean, think about the story, you know, how like all the things that make his life. He goes and he gets them, and it's very chaotic. And then he goes, I can get God too. This is a very American masculine. This is a very masculine way to encounter the divine.
Sure.
Very different from a lot of Eastern philosophies. We're going to go get God. We're going to build a building. We're going to put him in there. And it's a man. God is a man. We're going to get that man. We're going to put him in our pocket. He's going to do what he's a genie. And the genie's got to do what we want him to do. I mean, there's a lot there. And so what does he do? He sees an angel, a luminous being, tackles it, right? He says, bless me. And they wrestle all night. And this is God in some sort of human form, bodily form, an angel. And they wrestle till morning. And Buechner's take on the story is God is letting this poor, broken soul who thinks he can manipulate his way through life, that he can coerce his way into getting what he wants. And he's just God is letting Jacob hold him, right? And then in a split second, God is God again. He goes, with one touch of his finger, he wounds the man. And then he gives him what he asked for. He gives him a blessing and gives him a new name. And for the rest of his life, he walks with a limp. He's broken and made whole in the same moment. And this is true. You go through life striving. You will literally break your body. You know this better than most people do, Charlie. You can achieve a lot, get a lot, make a lot, and break yourself, and it will show up in your body.
For sure.
And this happens in Jacob, who becomes Israel, wrestles with God. And that, I think, is the story of how we encounter life. You can go through life trying to make things happen, and you will get a lot. That is the reality. So when people say you can't go through life, you know, hurting people and achieving and striving and succeed. Of course you can. We know so many people who have done that. You know, these people run our country sometimes. They run our world sometimes. Sure. You know, a lot of the way our world works is based on that you go out and get it, right? And the beauty of that story is there's another way. There is a way to dance with life, to let things happen. And Jacob is incredibly humbled from that experience and has all kinds of family drama and actually becomes, you know, it seems to be a more gentle, loving, gracious father, man who eventually founds and leads a nation, right? And that's my story. That's a lot of our stories is I'm going to go get that. I'm going to make that happen. And you break stuff when you do that. You break yourself when you do that. You break other people when you do that. And you can't do that with life. Life will let you, like you're wrestling with life. You think you're trying to make things happen. And life is just dancing with you, you know? And hopefully, if you're lucky, it breaks you. Yeah. And you walk with a limp for the rest of your life that reminds you, oh, there is another way to walk through life. I don't have to wrestle my way through life. I can slowly walk through it. The only practice I have today is I go for a daily walk through the woods, and I just walk slowly and remind myself you don't have to be so aggressive. You don't have to move so quickly. And when talking about hunting, you don't have to hunt. Well, most of what hunting is, actual hunting, is stillness. Is you get so still that the animal will come out, and then you can kill it. And so the best hunting is actually a letting, an allowing, not a chasing, right? I mean, some hunting is that, but most hunting, big game, wild game, you're waiting. Yeah. A lot of hunting, go to Africa. I know I have a friend who's a lion tracker. That's what he does for a living. Lion Tracker's Guide to Life, great book. And he talks about in that book, and I've heard him talk about this, in like just what tracking is. Tracking is finding the path and losing the path. Like part of the path is getting off the path, right? Part of letting things happen is trying to make things happen. And you go, oh, that's not it. I mean, so it's not this like passive as we've been known to think of it. It's an allowance of the way things are, and then paying attention and going, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
You know, instead of going, I'm going to the bar, I'm gonna go get that girl.
Right.
It's like just noticing who's in my life and what was that glance about, what's happening inside of me. And it doesn't mean that you don't go out and experience life. You do, but hopefully you do it with awareness instead of this needy. And if you're needy, you're gonna attract neediness.
Yeah.
Whatever you have in your life, you've either allowed or created.
For sure.
Is my belief.
Yeah, for sure. It's beautiful.
So good. Oh my goodness. I'm curious. One more question.
Yeah.
Just for both of you, I've from where I sit, I've seen both of you like really coming into and embracing feminine energy, like increasingly so. As I mean, I don't know you obviously as well, Jeff, but I mean, you're speaking to that today. Can you both of you share a little bit about like what that's been like, or how it feels? I mean, it seems just culturally like it's countercultural, right? Like what you're saying as a man to like tap into that and like really embrace the feminine side of you. But like there's so much life that seems to be emerging as you do that. And so I'm just curious if you could speak. I remember growing up, I would always like love it when men cried. Like it like did something to me because it's allowing themselves to be soft. And that was something that has always been very beautiful to me. And so as I'm surrounded by men that are like allowing themselves to be soft and to embrace and talk about and be open about the feminine parts of them, it's I just think it's really beautiful, but rare. Maybe it's becoming less rare, but it's rare.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. I follow some teachers who talk about this, relationship teachers who talk about trading masculine and feminine with alpha and omega. It's hard to get most men I know. There's some woke dudes out there like, I'm getting in touch with my feminine. But personally, it's like, yeah. And there's like most men I know think of themselves more as masculine than as feminine. Not all, but a lot. And I would say that's true of me. Like I feel more masculine than feminine. And I have seen how strong softness can be. And I can see how necessary it is as a father. But they talk about it in terms of alpha and omega energy. And the reality is our universe is made up of this energy, yin and yang, alpha, omega. I mean, you go back to the Bible, and that's kind of an interesting way to think of it. I'm the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end, this and this. I am Father and Sophia, right? I'm wisdom and Father, Son, all these things. And I think of the masculine as consciousness, as presence, as emptiness, the space, the empty void in which all things get filled, right? If you think about creation myth, you've got void, then you've got a voice speaking, and everything comes out of nothing. That's that duality, right? That's the masculine, feminine. So the feminine is everything. It is life. It is movement, right? And so when I was when I was in a fraternity in college, typically it was the girls who were moving more than the boys. They were moving, and like some of us, a bunch of mostly white dudes. Our moves were only so good, but the women just naturally knew how to move for the most part. And we need that. Like the masculine needs the movement of the feminine, and the feminine needs the stillness of the masculine, the container to feel safe. And we all have that in ourselves, right? And so as I learn to trust myself, and as I allow feelings to come up inside of me and hold space for myself and reparent myself, as I experience younger versions of myself having needs that have never been met, I go, oh, wow, this is life. This is the beauty of life, is there is awareness, there's consciousness, there is, sort of mind, and then there's body, there's movement, there's feeling. It feels better, it's just like, that is the play of life. And the more of life I experience, the more I look around, I go, oh, wow, this is so beautiful. I want to go deeper in both. I want to go deeper in stillness. The more present I get, the more I just kind of settle down, calm down, take some deep breaths, and then like watch a tree move in the wind. I go, wow, that's really beautiful. And then I can do the same thing inside of me. And then I can also experience the other side of that, where somebody else is holding space for me, and I get to move, I get to feel, I get to express, and I get to touch those parts of myself, inside of me, that I didn't, that I haven't explored as much, and that feels really beautiful. I like pulling it out of kind of the masculine, feminine conversation, although those are words that I use as well, because I find that for most people, they'll only go so far if that's the like, come on, Mallory, let's get you more masculine. Come on, Charlie, let's get you more feminine. Okay, bud, like just to be clear, anatomically, this is where I stand, or whatever. Right. Versus, don't you want to feel more?
Sure.
Don't you want to be able to regulate your own emotions when you need to? Don't you want to be able, like when you're dealing with your stuff, but your kids need something from you? Don't you want to be able to just go, okay, I gotta handle this in a way that doesn't feel like it's stuffing anymore, and then something is required of me. And I would say the best place that I found to do that is in relationship, not by yourself. Like the best place for me to discover my own inner feminine and masculine is in relationship with men and women. Friendships, romantic relationships. Like I want to be able, like having a safe container in which to experience that stuff is necessary, I think, because you are a relationship, right? And so how do you learn to do relationship? Through relationship. And so how do I learn how to connect with the deeper feeling parts of myself, the more feminine omega parts of myself? I've got to experience that in other people, and vice versa.
Yeah. Well, and masculine and feminine are just words.
Yeah,
and we talk about it a lot on this podcast, that they're just an attempt to describe a reality. And the reality of it is, when you look at a primary difference between masculine and feminine energy, is feminine is inward. And it's just become part of our culture that as a quote unquote man, you need to be outward facing or focused, and inward is something that you do if you're weak.
Yeah.
And so the thing that I don't like about the idea of masculine and feminine energy is that it makes it seem as if you're a man that you don't need both, or if you're a woman, you don't need both. You need more of one. And that's, the day and age in which we live, even a lot of women have more masculine energy than feminine energy. And they're taught that to get caught up in their feelings and to look inside is almost weakness, versus being strong and looking outward and having all of this confidence.
I think what we're seeing in society right now, and it's necessary, it's kind of an overcorrection, is, we're moving out of the like 1950s era, 1960s, even 1970s, where like, men go to take the train into the city, and the, wives stay home and iron and take care of the house. And there's a lot of dysfunction there, a lot of abuse. It wasn't illegal for a man to rape his wife until 1970 something, meaning like Yeah, you could be,
Sure, yeah.
if you were married and you were sexually abusing your wife, there's nothing wrong with it. So that's not okay. That's dysfunctional. That's not beautiful. That's not relationship, giving and receiving. And then you kind of, move through the 70s, 80s, hippie movements. Men grow their hair out. Women go to work, feminism. And now we're moving into the what do we do with all of this kind of phase, it seems to me. And what I see some people doing that I disagree with, and it's just my opinion, is I see men embracing their feminine, women embracing their masculine, and almost like kind of not quite reversing roles, but you're both kind of in the middle instead of understanding, as you said, these are just energies. These are just energy forms that make up reality. Again, think of them yin and yang, alpha and omega, consciousness, life, stillness, activity. And it's happening inside of us, right? You can still your mind, and while you do that, you can feel your body moving. You can feel your body actually kind of vibrating a little bit. You can feel blood, energy moving through your body and your stomach digesting things. So there's always something happening, and the more still you get, the more you notice that. What I think is necessary, at least what I'm working on, is I want to sink deep. I want more of life. How do you get more of life? You sink deeper into your masculine. You get more present. You get more still. You learn how to move your body more. You become more feminine. I want more life, so I want more of both. I've got to deepen my capacity for both of them. One requires, I think, sort of a deepening, presence, a stillness, meditation, focus, deep breathing. Another one requires activity, movement, feeling, dancing, all that stuff. And I know plenty of men who are just becoming softer without deepening their presence, without at the same time becoming stronger, more resilient, more aware. And I think we need both. And in order to do that, you can't assume what you are or how you're wired. It's you want more life. This is the stuff that life is made of, and it lives inside of you, and you have the capacity to grow in both of those poles. And as you do that, you can't just move one pole, because I think what happens is you move one pole and the other moves with it sometimes. Sure. It's I'm just over here now, but my capacity to feel and experience the fullness of life is still kind of the same. It's just, I just kind of moved it down the spectrum a little bit. It's I now see red, blue, and green, but I don't see yellow, purple, and whatever. And I want to widen, because I love life, and the more of these energies that I play with, the feeling and the presence, if you want to call it that, the richer life becomes. The more I experience what I understand to be the kingdom of heaven here and now happening. And I want more of that, and so I want to widen my capacity to take it all in and to engage with it.
I love it.
Good.
Episode
67?
67.
453.